After nearly 20 years in the news business, Pulitzer-nominated investigative reporter Caitlin Rother left her job at the Union Tribune in 2006 with one published book, a new book contract, and the hope of making a living as a full-time author. Today, she is doing just that and is working on book number 8 about the John Gardner case. Tonight, Caitlin will read from her latest true crime book, Dead Reckoning, released just this month. Caitlin Rother.
Okay, so I'm going to read from my prologue. This is the very first page of the book. Alonzo McChain was unemployed with bills to pay, so he took up his friend Skylar DeLeon's offer to help restore a family boat at the Cabrillo Yard in Long Beach, California. As they were sanding the Hatteras together, Skylar boasted about his plans for fixing up his new toy. Then Skylar offered his 21-year-old buddy a much more lucrative job. "Well, what are you talking about?" Alonzo asked. "A couple $1 million, Skylar said. "Wow, how do you make a couple $1 million without it being illegal?" "Well," Skylar said, "it's not really illegal unless you get caught." As Skylar's plan would evolve in the coming days of October 2004, the promised payoff soon increased to several $1 million to help Skylar take care of some people who had done something bad and pissed somebody off. He wasn't usually paid for these gigs, he said, but he got to keep the assets of the targets, who were typically well off. Skylar said he'd split the proceeds of his next job with Alonzo, but didn't give him much time to mull it over. "So you want to do it or not?" Skylar asked a couple of days later. Alonzo wasn't really sure what to think. Skylar was always talking about how rich he and his family were, and Alonzo believed him. And although he knew Skylar liked to tell stories, he never stopped to consider that the few times Skylar had thrown him a mere $20 for the boat restoration work, they'd had to drive to an ATM to get it. Still, he decided to take the job. Skylar went into more detail about the plan as he showed Alonzo photos of a yacht called the Well-Deserved, whose wealthy owners had put it up for sale. Alonzo's role was to help him get in with the owners, Tom and Jackie Hawks, then hold them down. The 55-foot trawler was moored in the upscale community of Newport Beach in Orange County, a sharp contrast to the sprawling mix of urban, industrial, and suburban areas of Long Beach where Skylar lived with his wife, Jennifer, in neighboring Los Angeles County. Unlike the spacious homes in Newport, decorated in the mute beiges and sandstone of the wealthy, home for Skylar and Jennifer was a cramped, converted garage behind her parents' duplex. Space was so tight, the DeLeons had to stack their belongings on the floor and hang their clothing from a pole that ran between two dressers right next to the bed. It was a far cry from the opulent mansions featured on The Real Housewives of Orange County. Contrary to the story he told Alonzo about the $3 million a month he'd earned working with Ditech funding, Skylar had been fired from his job as appraiser's assistant there and looked at his wealthier neighbors in the OC with envy. He coveted their waterfront homes, their boats, and private planes that he couldn't afford, and he lied to persuade folks that he could. Although he wasn't anywhere near as smart or capable as Bernie Madoff in building a complex financial scheme, Skylar's scam was just as, if not more, deceitful. And when it came to lying and manipulating people, Skylar was pretty damn good at that too. The next time he and Alonzo met up, Skylar said he'd determined the best way to overcome the couple. Using stun guns and handcuffs, Alonzo would grab Jackie in the galley while Skylar took down Tom in the bedroom, where no one could hear him scream. Skylar said he'd considered taking Tom scuba diving and finishing him off underwater, but he'd realized that would have precluded the Hawkses from signing over the boat title and power of attorney documents Skylar was going to draw up. "What I'll do is just take them out to sea and toss them overboard," he said. The next day, November 6th, Skylar said it was time to do the deed. By now, Alonzo felt it was too late to extricate himself from the situation. If 25-year-old Skylar really was a hitman, what would prevent him from harming Alonzo? On board, Tom Hawks proudly gave them a tour of his home, but Alonzo could see from Skylar's tone of voice and body language that he'd changed his mind. Skylar seemed far too relaxed to kill anyone as he chatted with Tom for 45 minutes about possible modes of payment. Afterwards, Schuyler told Alonzo that he'd changed his mind once he'd realized that Tom was just too muscular for the two of them to handle this alone. They really needed a third man. Schuyler also sensed some discomfort on the Hawks' part, so he called Jennifer on his cell phone as soon as they got back to the car. "Hey, you need to come down, take a look at the boat to make these people feel a little more at ease," he told her. So after sending Alonzo on his way, Schuyler and his pregnant wife went back on board, pushing their 11-month-old daughter Haley in a stroller to do just that.